Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. This is July 12th if you're in the US, July 13th if you're on the other side of the world where I am. And we're going to be talking about some things that are going on, including new solar storms which are scheduled to hit the Earth anytime now. The alien false invasion threat among the mainstream media is continuing to grow in terms of the narrative. There's been talk of Ukraine entering NATO, which, if that were to happen, would in fact immediately trigger World War III. And we have Finland has just entered NATO, creating more of a threat going in that direction. And we've got mainstream media news just today talking about needing for us to get ready to go to war with China. What does all this mean? Well, what it means is that the timer is ticking down to the ascension. This actually is good news, because for the powers that be to be so incredibly frightened that they're literally trying to create World War III and going on to NBC and telling people that, yeah, we need to get ready to go to war with China very soon. This is I've never seen anything like this. So for those of you who are new to the channel, the solar flash is a term that is used which is meant to describe an event that supposedly large amounts of high radiation hits planet Earth from the sun, which is actually taking that from the galactic center. And as the story goes, as this energy hits Earth, there will be a massive awakening all over planet Earth, and we will shift into a new awareness, which is what people are calling 5D. And I remember years ago, I talked about it on my channel years ago before I had any of the beliefs I do now about any of this stuff. But I remember, because I found it interesting, that there was something called the Looking Glass Project. And there was supposedly some insider, deep state, unacknowledged military program advisor who worked on this piece of technology called the Looking Glass. And what this person came back and said, I can't remember the individual's name. This was like a long time ago. I think this was in like before 2012 even. And this individual was talking about how they had this piece of technology that actually had been pilfered from I think Iraq, going all the way back to the Sumerians. And apparently this had something to do with some kind of a mirror, and somehow it was able to bend light so that you could look into the future, and then you could predict what timeline you could create. And so they hooked it up to some computer, and apparently what the deep state would do is that they would have some technician who's trained to do this to enter in what happens if we start a war here? What happens if we create a plague here? What happens if we do this, we do that? And then it would show different timelines of how people would most likely respond. And so they would pick the timeline that would give them the most power. And bear in mind, again, this comes with the assumption that there is a group which you can call the Illuminati, which you can call the elites, which you can call the reptilians. I don't care what you call them, but the assumption is that there's a small group of extremely wealthy, powerful people who have that has power going all across the world. And so apparently these people would look into this piece of technology, and they would determine what things they were going to create, what kind of economic problems, what kind of wars they could start, in order to help them consolidate more power and be able to control more and more people in the world, right? So I found that very interesting. And according to this person, what happened is that no matter what scenario they put into the machine, trying to find the best timeline which would give them the most power, that something happened sometime after 2012, where no matter what timeline they tried to create, it always ended up creating a scenario where the world awoke. And there was this huge awakening event. And then everything changed. And then the powers that be, the Illuminati, the elites, the cabal, whatever word you want to use, they lost all of their power. And so this frightened them to no end. And so they've been scrambling, trying to create a world that they can control. And I guess according to him, there was a small percentage of chance that if they did some really unbelievable things, it would tip their hand to the public, but it might also give them the ability to win over. So I find that very interesting, because that's how I feel where we are. Listen, let's back up a bit. So let's just start with, I just found out today that Finland entered NATO, which is huge, because Finland used to be like, all of the neutral countries. Finland was one of those countries that said, we're not getting involved in any political nothing, and now they're part of NATO, which makes Russia even more frightened. By the way, in case you don't know what's going on, there's a lot more to the Russia-Ukraine war than what you've been told. And I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong here, I'm not taking a side. I'm just telling you the facts, is that NATO has been surrounding Russia since the Cold War, and Ukraine has very strong ties to Russia, both linguistically as well as ethnically, as well as historically. In fact, the founder of Moscow, do you know where he came from? Came from Ukraine. The guy who founded Moscow, actually his home was in what is now Ukraine. And on top of that, Russia has been saying for a very long time, hey, we need that buffer zone. And we can't tolerate you being right on our border. We can't tolerate that. Don't do that. They've been saying that for years. Ukraine also has a lot of natural resources. And if you think that wars happen because of politics and borders, then please, I invite you to wake up to the reality of what war is about. War is always about money. And people fight wars over natural resources and access to natural resources. Petroleum, natural gas, whatever it is that they need that keeps them on top of the financial pyramid, that's what people go to war over. It's always been about that. But in order to get populations to support wars, they have to be something, fight for freedom, or to free the slaves, or to, shut down the concentration camps. Those are the things that get the average person who doesn't understand what, global politics is about, to get all fired up and join the army. That's why the majority of people in the United States, the guys on the ground that are dying, in whatever conflict, they're doing it because they believe they're protecting freedom, when in reality what's happening is that they are protecting the investments of the global aristocracy, who are running, we know now, they're running all of the corporations. That's just a fact. It's It's not conspiracy theories anymore. So this is really what the war is about. It's what it's always been about. And if you want to blame Russia, you want to blame, the Ukraine and the United States, I don't care who you blame. They're both fighting for the same thing. They don't give a crap. Just to let you know, I mean, there's a really interesting picture of the most recent NATO summit, which just happened. And the president of Ukraine is standing there all by himself, and nobody's talking to him. All of the countries of NATO are talking to each other, and nobody's talking to him because nobody gives a crap about Ukraine. Nobody cares. NATO doesn't care about the people of Ukraine. They care about access to these, the things that Ukraine is sitting on top of, all of the natural resources. The same thing happened with the Iraq War. Same thing. It's all about. It's always been about oil. It's always been about natural resources. So, in any case, there's talk about Ukraine entering NATO, and what's interesting, even though Biden has just now approved sending absolutely barbaric cluster bombs to give to Ukraine to fight against Russia, even though we being the United States is fighting a war against Russia. They are doing it. The fact that you're giving all of your weapons to Ukrainian soldiers doesn't change the fact. I mean, you're the one that's funding the war. You're pushing it. You're fighting it. And anyway, so we've got that going on. But Finland entering NATO is a frightening thing because Finland that's not something Finland would do, which means the narratives is spreading, continuing to change. Ukraine wants to enter NATO, and the reason for that is that every NATO country, there is a pact. The whole point of NATO is if anybody attacks a NATO country, then all of the members of the NATO pact have to go to war with that country. So since Russia is already fighting Ukraine, if Ukraine were admitted into NATO, which the only reason they're not is because the Allies are not ready to go to nuclear war with Russia yet. When they're ready to do that, all of a sudden, magically, they'll say, hey, Ukraine, you can be now a part of NATO, which would mean that the United States was ready to go to war with Russia. So we're inching closer and closer to this. And so we've also got, again, I'm listening to the news. All I do is I listen to the headlines unless there's a story that really catches my eye, and one really caught my eye in the headlines, which was, NBC, nightly news. Some cute girl on the nightly news says, and today we're going to go talk to, third star general so-and-so about should we be going to war with China? As though we're talking about, and right along after that, and is it time to buy a new car? I shit you not. We're going to be going to war with China in a couple of years, says one prominent general. And is now the time to buy a new car? I couldn't believe I was listening to it. It's absolute total. It's just beyond comedic. You're being set up. So you're being set up by the mainstream media to get comfortable with the idea of going to war. And the end result of that story was that the general says, yes, we are now ready. Because they asked, are we ready to go to war with China? And he says, yes, we're now ready. Glint, twinkle. And why that isn't absolutely, causing horror to them is unbelievable to me. But it lets you know what's happening here. So bottom line is all of this stuff is coming together in order to hopefully for the elites, they are trying to avoid this solar flash which is on the way. We're actually in the process of experiencing it. And again, the alien false invasion threat is being promoted. Now, as you know, I've got a link here in the chat. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you want to find out what is really going on with the unacknowledged deep state black ops military UFO program, where we've got human beings who are creating and or reverse engineering alien technology to create their own force of military force with UFO capabilities. Go click on the link below to find out what is really going on, because you're hearing in the mainstream news about these supposed military whistleblowers, but David Grush is a CIA plant. He is, and the way that you know that is, number one, his face is plastered all over the mainstream media, and everybody's wondering, who is this guy, a military whistleblower? That is designed to distract you from actually the hundreds and thousands of military whistleblowers that are coming forward behind closed doors, asking the government for their protection, because they've all been threatened. Their lives have been threatened if they come forward with what is really going on. So in order to distract you from that, you are seeing in the mainstream media, which is being reflected in, the average ufology nutbag who doesn't really, who gets excited about the idea of aliens invading and taking people hostage. The whole narrative is being diverted to talk about this supposed one or two military whistleblowers who are now outright saying in the mainstream media, I just want to make you let's just step back for a second. It's, in my reality, that I've lived up until this point, it is simply impossible for the mainstream media to talk about aliens and UFOs as though they're real things. In my reality, going back, I've been on this planet for decades now. It just is simply impossible for members of the Pentagon and members of Congress to be talking about aliens and UFOs. This is now going on in mainstream media. But what you're being presented with now is they're openly talking about aliens being demons, openly talking about aliens killing humans. And of course, all this does is this distracts from the actual whistleblowers who are giving real testimony behind closed doors in Congress, and they are asking Congress to protect their lives so that they can come out publicly. And you're not hearing any of that. So this is setting us up, of course, for a potential false flag, where parties who are not focused on the well-being of the human race would use this technology to pretend to be aliens invading Earth. I'm choosing my words carefully, because if I tell you the actual truth, I've gotten in trouble with YouTube before, but you can fill in the blanks. And I've got the video there, the link for you to go check it out if you want. So with that out of the way, here's the good news. The good news is that if this kind of craziness is going on, that you are being, they're deflecting to war with China, and they're trying to they're pushing the envelope as far as they can. I mean, cluster bombs are really nasty things. And Biden is sending cluster bombs to Ukraine. And, that's about that we're getting really close to sending, just going nuclear. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to push Russia as close as they can. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that hypothetically speaking, I'm only speaking hypothetically here, YouTube. Hypothetically speaking, if there were a group of extremely powerful rich people who wanted to keep monopolies on resources and technologies and the narrative, etc., then it would be in their best interest for things like World War III. Because they're not interested in things like democracy and safety and boundaries and countries. They're interested in global corporate control. So the more that society falls apart, and the more that people become gripped with fear, and the more that people become confused and don't know where to go, and the more that economies come crashing down, the faster they can go in and scoop things up, which is what has happened after every single war we've had. Going back to World War I, at least. What happens is there's these world wars, and then what ends up happening? The rich industrialists come in and they scoop it up. And then you've got these international cadres of businessmen and who are really just interested in how much money they can make. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that that's what's happening. So it means that we're getting close. Going back to what I said earlier, if the stories are true that the deep state elite have this awareness that they have a small sliver of chance, if they can create enough chaos, they might be able to create a timeline where they can control the world, then of course they are going to burn the place down if they have to. You know, they don't care. They'll burn the place down in the hopes that they can wrangle up all of that wonderful power. Because another thing that I found very, very interesting, I didn't know about this until recently, is that billionaires like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, as well as governments, as well as the World Economic Forum, as well as Joe Biden, have all talked in favor of a plan to block out the sun by putting into the atmosphere some kind of reflective, I don't know what it is, some kind of a chemical which is supposed to reflect what? Solar radiation. And what they'll say is solar radiation is what's causing global warming. When that's not what's causing global warming. It is the release of the petroleum in all kinds of ways that the petroleum companies are making trillions of dollars off. So they don't want to stop polluting the atmosphere with greenhouse gases. But for some strange reason, they want to block out the solar radiation from the sun, which is what? The solar flash. Because what is going on right now, as you know, is that we are in the beginning parts of an extremely powerful solar maximum, which is when the electromagnetic poles of the sun shift. And when that happens, there's a lot of solar storms, and solar radiation reaches the Earth. And it has been predicted, that it would be sort of kind of like this, and it's already gone far beyond, like double or tripled what was projected for the entire solar maximum. So it's like, NASA's like, where's all this solar energy coming from? And that is what the solar flash supposedly is. High vibrational solar energy hitting the Earth, shifting everybody up to the next level of awareness. At the same time, we have an incursion event where the electromagnetic field of the Earth is, starting to reduce significantly, and this has been correlated in past times with evolutionary shifts. In fact, that is when the Neanderthals went extinct and human beings became the most dominant bipedal hominid on planet Earth. The rest of them died out when this exact scenario was going on. And even scientists will say the solar radiation hits the Earth and the DNA of the animals on the Earth gets altered because of the solar radiation. And so why would the powers that be, why would Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, who wants to put 1 trillion people in space and save Earth as sort of like a playground for the rich? You don't believe me? Go on his channel and listen to him. He'll basically say that. He does say he wants to put 1 trillion people in space. He does say he wants to put you in space and give you your own little cubicle, which he will rent to you, of course, or you can work for him. And why would he want to block out the sun? if they didn't know that solar radiation is what is going to shift all of the beings up to the next level. The higher harmonic of the vibration of the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is, the frequency of Earth. And when we put higher vibrations of solar radiation in, what do you think is going to shift up? The entire resonance of the Earth, the Schumann resonance, is going to shift up. So it's obvious, it's a pathetic attempt to try and prevent that from happening. It's pathetic. But, that's what narcissists do. Narcissists and psychopaths, they are not sane, and they are, they're operating from a place of tremendous insecurity and incredible fear, and coming from a place of desperation. They present themselves as though they've got it all together, but why would somebody who's already got millions of dollars want to become a billionaire? What could you possibly gain by having more, how many more billions of dollars until you have enough? Obviously, there's something not right with people that do that. And spiritually, these are people who are bereft of any connection with themselves or with other people. All right, so, and just to let you know, I put a video, and if you want, you can go look for something called the Cozy Rev Mirror. It's spelled K-O-Z-Y-R-E-V, Cozy Rev Mirror. It is exactly what is described when you talk about the Looking Glass Project. That actually it's a very simple device. And the guy who invented it was killed. He was a Russian guy, and he was, no surprise, killed by the Russian government because he created a very simple machine just built with mirrors to bend light, which allowed people to do all kinds of crazy things, including looking into the future. So all this stuff is real, what we're talking about. We're now getting to the point where science and what used to be crazy New Age spirituality is coming together. So my suggestion to everybody is always the same. My first suggestion is that you be willing to do the work to shift yourself out of the current three-dimensional mindset, which is associated with fear, which is, again, I just gave you all the stuff that the mainstream is throwing at you, which is designed to put you in a state of fear. When somebody is smiling and talking about whether you should buy a car, and in the same breath talking about we're now ready to go to war with China, as though, it's nothing, that is done on purpose. It is done to unconsciously frighten you, at the same time giving you the feeling that this is all normal. It is just typical gaslighting. It's the kind of craziness that psychopaths do. And this is why people are joking around talking about aliens being demons and aliens killing humans. And we're talking about it like it's not a big deal. That's designed to put you in a state of trauma, but at the same time to gaslight you out of the trauma that you've just been put into, so that you will accept whatever comes down the pike, that you will not take any action, that you will be a more manipulatable citizen. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but that's what's happening with all of the problems associated with the border crisis. I am not going to say anything more than that, but the border crisis is something that has been in the process of being created for, I'm going to say, 100 years. And now it's to the point where the whole point of the border crisis, both in the United States and in other parts of the world, is to accomplish one thing, which is to bring in people that are much more easily controlled by government. That's it. All right. I'm happy to take questions if there are any. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps. If you have a question, please do me a favor and let me know, what practices of mine are you doing? Are you subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong at thunderwizard.com? Are you doing any of the free meditations? Because if you're not doing any of these practices and you drop a question, I'm just giving you a heads up. It's very likely I'm going to know right off the bat, because it's going to be clear from your question that you're either not asking me questions based on what I'm talking about or what I teach, but I'm also going to know your mindset. And so it's extremely important to make this shift into 5D. You've got to have some tools to be able to help your psyche as well as your physical body and your energy to shift up. And that's what all of those practices are about. So please let me know, which practice are you doing? Are you doing Awakening the Immortals? Are you doing the Hool Breath? Are you doing the Lightning Qigong, the Mao Shan practices? And then ask your question. I'm not requiring it of you, but I'd like it. And I'd also like to hear your feelings. Feeling means you have to write an emotion. Other than that, I probably won't pay attention to what you have to say unless it's a question or a feeling. All right. So I've given you plenty of time to look at this. Kelly Halcom, it looks to me like you are new to the channel. And what are natural resources? Natural resources are things like petroleum, gasoline, coal, natural gas. The things that people that the big corporations make money off of. They make trillions of dollars off of petroleum. All wars have been fought over petroleum in the past few decades. So that's what natural resources are. Zarelath Immortal, honest feeling. By the way, while we're talking about that, again, Jeff Bezos, he has his own space program. He wants to go out into space, and he's made it very clear he wants to go out into space for one reason. He wants to go out into space so that he can mine for natural resources on other planets. He wants to go to the moon. He wants to go to other planets. He makes it very clear so he can get natural resources. He is not wanting to explore space because he wants to expand our awareness of our reality. He wants to expand his bottom line. Don't believe me? Go to his channel and watch. He will tell you. That's why he wants to, and he says he wants to save Earth, so he's making it clear that mining for resources on Earth is bad for the planet. Let's go mine for resources out in space. And then he says, because you need energy. You need to use your laptop, and you need, I'm not kidding you. I couldn't make this shit up. You need electricity instead, and then I will own that shit, and I will sell it to you, and you can live in space while you pay me for the energy that you use to play around on your computer. I'm not kidding you. I'm dead serious. That's his whole fucking spiel. It's unbelievable. So natural resources is what this is all about, because as you already pointed out, we already have the technology to power everything without using any natural resources. The only thing that is used is energy that exists combined with your consciousness. We already have that ability, and that is being held from you simply because the rich people can't make money off of that. They can only make money if you drill into the ground and pull out diamonds and petroleum and aluminum and whatever the hell else they pull out of the ground. All right, what else? Zarelath Immortal, honest feeling. I fear if it hits the fan, I will be forced to fight in it. What are you talking about? I mean, I understand the feeling. It's just a feeling. I hear you. So I won't try and explain your feelings away. I appreciate you sharing that feeling. Cats and me, honest feeling. I feel joy and happiness from taking risks and doing the best I can with what I've got. Good for you. Rare earth elements too. Yeah, stuff in order to make your computer work. Even though, again, they have the technology to do things beyond that. but there's no money in it. Anyway, I don't see any other questions here. So here's the deal. This channel is not about you listening to me talk. If you do, I'm glad you're coming onto the channel and listening to me rant and rave, but that's not what I'm here for. My job is to give you practical tools. This is the job I have been given. My job is to give you practical tools which will help you physically, psychologically, and spiritually raise your vibration up to the next level. It's not going to happen by itself. Don't wait around for the solar flash to come, because the less evolved your energy is, the more challenging this shift is going to be. And according to some people, which I've been given a lot of evidence from my higher dimensional friends, that there is a possibility that there's going to be a new higher dimensional 5D Earth where people live in bliss, and there's going to be a lower three-dimensional Earth, even lower than the one we're in now, where people will continue to live in fear and in pain and in anguish. And I'm not a real fan of that, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you that that's what has come to me in terms of some communications and some evidence. And the only difference between whether or not you're living in nasty, lower dimensional 3D or higher dimensional 3D, the only difference is the level of frequency of your vibration. And so that will only be achieved by taking action. Even if that action is being able to change your psyche to a different identity, and it sounds a lot easier than it is. It's very challenging. But if you have the tools and you're taking action with tools that shift your energy, then it only makes sense that you will be able to make the shift even easier. The things that I teach are things that I have been using my entire adult life to shift my energy to where I'm at now. And if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. So what I recommend is you go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. You can go to courses.thunderwizard.com to see all of my services, including Vedic astrology, the rune readings, all of my certifications in all of these different things if you want to start. And by the way, I believe in this new world we're going to be in. It's going to be completely flipped. The people who are going to be most in demand are going to be energy healers and people who teach energy practices and spiritual teachers. They're going to be the most valued people in the new society. So if you want to be able to have, not only empower yourself, but be available to help others, you can go here to courses.thunderwizard.com and see if any of those courses work for you. All of my books. If you really want to know what's going on, stuff that I can't talk about on YouTube, get my book, Interdimensional Revolution, which you can find on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can just punch in my name here, Michael William Denny. You see it spelled there for you. There's also Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, and possibly the most important book I have, which is the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. That, if you master what's in that tiny little booklet, you will be able to shift. But it's going to take some action. And listening to people on YouTube is not an action. If you do nothing, nothing will change. That is a guarantee. So you've got nothing to lose by taking some action and empowering yourself. And that's what this channel is about. And if for whatever reason you're 10 years old or you're living on the street and you can't afford the 90-day challenge, then you can go to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel page, and you can go to the playlists and you can see the meditations and energy works there as well, and you can do those for free, but do something every day. That, I can't stress that enough. Got to take action. All right, I've been babbling to give you time to write questions. Let's see if any came up. Cats and me, no, that's a Zeralath Immortal Clarify. War comes to my home, scares me. Well, yeah, I understand that fear. So Zerlath, the way that the universe works is that you just focus on your soul and what makes you happy, and uh, the universe will guide you someplace safe. That's always been the case for me. So listen to your soul, and if your soul one day says, you know what, I need to move to Timbuktu, move to Timbuktu, and then you'll find out a month later war broke out. What else? Kel Halcom, question. That's not a question. That's not a question. Okay, none of those are questions. All right. Well, I guess that's it then. If we don't have any questions, then I guess we're done. So I just did all the spiel, so you know where to go and what to do. And that's it, my friends. There should be, starting today or tomorrow, there's probably going to be another solar storm that's going to hit Earth. And what that means is it's a very powerful time to do interdimensional meditation. If you don't know what interdimensional meditation is, you can go to the channel page and click on the interdimensional meditation playlist. I've also got interdimensional meditations here at thunderwizard.com. It's part of the Lightning Qigong. By the way, in case you don't realize what you get when you go there, you get access to the Mastery of Shamanism, which is, I started this channel, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, and I created the Master of Shamanism course, which goes into stuff, huge, you can't find all of that I teach anywhere else, just that part. Then we have the Manifestation Mastery course, where I explain to you how you, with your mindset and your actions, you can actually get the universe to act like a vending machine, where you can just pull a lever and you get what you need and what you want. You can learn how to have the universe give you what you need instead of trying to attract it or worrying about how to live your life. And then we've got of course, the interdimensional meditation course there, and we've got the Lightning Qigong, which is a combination of Qigong and Kundalini energy practices, which is the fifth dimensional consciousness energy, and the lightning energy of the heart, which almost nobody knows about. And I'm the only person to have combined these all of these into one practice. You just simply press play and follow the different levels. I take you through it. Just do what I do. You don't have to know anything ahead of time. Sometimes people say, I have to get myself prepared for the Lightning Qigong. No, you don't. I've made it incredibly simple. You just go there, and after you've signed up, you'll see a little box that'll say Lightning Qigong. You click on it, all of the Lightning Qigong videos will come up, and you just start with level 1, and you just press play and do what I do. I couldn't make it any easier. And I guarantee you won't find anything that comes even close. Energy masters who have been energy masters in Tai Chi, Qigong, whenever they have practiced these practices that I've taken from my studies over the years, they have all come back to me and said, I'm a master of Tai Chi. I've been a master for X amount of years, and I've never experienced anything like this. I'm a Qigong master, and I've never felt anything this pure and this powerful. And I'm basically giving this stuff away to you for free, and I'm doing it because this is the vibration of the fifth dimension. You want to get there sooner? Do the practices. So you got nothing to lose. If you subscribe and you don't like it, unsubscribe. Big deal. What have you lost? Nothing. All right, let's see. Has anything come up since then? So Morag Greer, do me a favor. Don't be lazy. If we were sitting there talking to each other, you would talk to me in a full sentence. You wouldn't throw out 3 words and then expect me to try and figure out what you were saying, would you? So have some respect for yourself. The way you respect yourself is you present yourself completely and fully. And that way I know exactly what you're asking me, and then I get to help you. I get to meet your needs. But when you throw out only 2 or 3 words with no verb and no subject, and then I have to try and figure out what you're saying, and you deserve better than that. So I'm not going to answer that question because it's not a well-formulated question, and I have more respect for you than to co-sign you not putting the effort into writing a whole sentence. All right? So you're welcome to the channel. I appreciate you wrote the word question, but actually write an entire question and I'll answer it for you. I missed your first question. I'm looking for it. I don't see it. Did you write the word question in all caps? That's one way I will miss a question. I don't even see your name. So I didn't miss your first question. The only one I see, you have an incomplete sentence there. And it's not, okay, it's not even a clear, look, seriously guys, two most important things in life. This is really important. You have to be able to put the effort into thinking clearly. Does this sound like a clear question to you? Is another human being a better guide than a human? Is another being a better guide than a human? I don't know why you're asking me that. I'm assuming you're asking me that because all right. See, and it's also important that this is what's bugging me about your question. What you really want to ask me is, instead of finding a human to be my teacher, can I just, in my meditations, connect with some non-physical being and say that that's my teacher? That's really why you're asking me that question. And what's really behind that question is you don't want to have a physical teacher. You go on to say, I have met an interdimensional being that seems better than a human. Yeah, so now that tells me everything. You say, using my meditation. Good. It tells me everything about you. These are two different things. As you know, I teach people to interact with higher dimensional beings. I think it's incredibly important. But I promise you that that being, if you ask it, will say, yes, go find a teacher. It's not an either or. What is it that teachers do? What is it that Yogananda did? What is it that I do? What is it that any real teacher does? They will give you practices and teach you how to connect to higher dimensional beings. And you learn the human side of it from other humans. So asking me, asking me, is this better than a human? You're wanting me to co-sign not having to find a teacher, and I'm not going to do that. Because we as a human species are making this shift. I mean, if your question was true, I wouldn't be talking about this. I wouldn't be sharing it. And in fact, you learned how to connect with a higher dimensional being from me because you did my meditation. So again, what this tells me is that you have issues personally interacting with others, with teachers. You have an issue being vulnerable to a human being who's going to teach you something. So the answer to that question, it's not, you're making an either or question out of something that's not an either or scenario. It's not interdimensional beings or humans. That's not the only choice that you have. It's a both. You can do both at the same time. So Morag, I encourage you to reach out and connect to other humans. I encourage you to find a teacher, a mentor, a guide to help you with everyday human spiritual practices while you are continuing to connect with higher dimensional beings. Because here's what higher dimensional beings want more than anything else. They want you to connect to other people. They want you to have more love and compassion and connect to others. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to help you heal yourself. But the way these beings work is that they want to teach you ways where you will become aware how your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions simultaneously affect you as well as others. It's happening at the same time. So I'm just pointing out to you, your question is telling me that your thinking is going in a direction that's narcissistic and self-referential, and it's completely antithetical to the whole idea of shifting into 5D, which is exactly the opposite of what's been going on the past 3 years. What's been going on? People have been told that they have to stay. Remember when you had to stay at home? I remember when, if you were single and alone, like I was during the whole lockdown, you had to stay home, in your own home, by yourself. You weren't allowed to go out and interact with other people in the fresh air. You weren't allowed to communicate any thought that wasn't approved via Facebook. So you couldn't even communicate with your friends about how stupid this lockdown was. I mean, they were arresting people when I was here in Australia at the time. They were arresting people, taking them to jail. I mean, there's a story about a pregnant woman who was pregnant, big belly out to here, and she had gone onto Facebook and said, let's go and protest the lockdown. And they came to her house and they took her away. And even here, it wasn't as big a deal here where I am, but people were told, if you have more than 5 people, cops were knocking on your door telling your friends have to leave. And you're like, how did you know we had friends? Because we can monitor you. We know where all of your cell phones are. And if there's more than 5 or 6 cell phones in a home, we know that you've got too many people there. The whole point of all of that was to keep you isolated and within yourself. And everything I'm teaching, I am hoping will do the opposite of that. It doesn't mean that you can't spend, as I do, I spend time every single day in meditation connecting with higher dimensional beings. But my goal isn't to squirrel myself away from people. So no, you need teachers. You haven't found one, you need to look to find another one. Keep looking until you find somebody that you can learn something from. But do not use interdimensional meditation as an excuse to stay isolated. That's a recipe for well, it's not a good thing. What else? So Morag, don't take it personally. Again, people ask me questions. My job is to, I can tell when something isn't right about the question. And that's usually, unfortunately, when I get that feeling that something isn't right about the question, I tend to respond a little bit harshly until I can figure out what it is about the question that's bothering me. But that's what's bothering me, Morag, is that you're at least in that question saying, I want to stay isolated. I'm afraid of interacting with others. Shouldn't I just work with my invisible friend? And the answer is absolutely not. You should find a teacher. Forever love question. That's not a question. Forever love, here's a question. Just because you put a question mark at the end of a sentence doesn't make it a question. A question is when you ask me something that you don't know the answer to. So what you've just done is throw out some passive-aggressive, forgive me, but virtue signaling, and you put a question mark at the end of it. And that's usually because people do that when they're uncomfortable with what they perceive as conflict. It's a very codependent thing. That's not a question. It's what you say when you're drinking beer with somebody. Isn't it a beautiful day outside? Just because you got nothing else to say. So I welcome you on the channel if you want to actually ask a question, which means there's something inside of me that I don't have the answer to, and it's bothering me, and I'm wondering if you have the answer. What does such and such mean? And you have a specific question, then we're going to get along a lot better. Tony Bennett Band question. I feel like I'm blocking myself from finding a sponsor for CODA. CODA is Codependence Anonymous, by the way. I recommend everybody who, if you think you have any kinds of issues surrounding 12-step issues, 12 steps are absolutely the best path for self-transformation I've found. So that's what he's talking about. He says, any suggestions on beating this blockage? I'm meditating, but maybe I need more. Yeah. Stop wasting your time trying to change your feeling. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are just that. They are emotional responses to uncomfortable thoughts. So you have resistance to finding a sponsor. Of course you do. You're a human being. The whole idea of having a sponsor, the same question about having a teacher. Teachers are going to do what I'm going to do. They're going to push you beyond your comfort zone for your benefit. And so our minds are created in such a way that we don't want to get, once we've found, isolation, which is what I hear in both of these questions. The desire to isolate is coming from fear. It's coming from fear because you've learned for whatever reason that staying isolated in yourself is how you've learned to preserve yourself in whatever dysfunctional scenario you're in. So, when you're a little kid and you're surrounded by a bunch of dysfunctional people, or, you're bullied at school as a little kid, then you learn the way to protect yourself is to isolate. And unfortunately, you don't grow out of that as you get older. That programming stays with you, and you stay isolated as an adult. And so when you're in a situation where you have to go against what your nervous system is telling you need to do to survive, you're going to have resistance. Your mind and your feelings are going to try and stop you. In your case, you're going to feel blocked, which is another way of saying, I just simply don't want to go and ask somebody to sponsor me. I just simply don't want to go and find a teacher and ask them, will they teach me? This is why people don't want to pay for stuff. The main reason why people don't want to pay me for the really inexpensive stuff that I give out, even though it's better presented and more powerful, isn't because of the money, because they're more than happy to spend $50 a month on their bag of weed or $50 a month on their next video game. But to spend, $55 to subscribe to my thing, I'm not going to pay that for a spiritual teaching. That should just be given to me. The money represents them actually going out of themselves, getting out of their narcissism. And when narcissism protects you as a little kid, then that becomes the default when you run into the unknown in your adult life. So my answer, it's a great question. My answer to your question is stop trying to change your feeling and just do the opposite. Your feeling is telling you not to ask that guy to sponsor you. Do the exact opposite from your feeling, because your feeling is trying to keep you trapped in your old survival mechanisms which aren't serving you. Again, my ancestors said that those who die in battle go to Valhalla. They didn't say those who overcome their fear and go into battle. It doesn't say those who are brave and have no issues. It doesn't say that. It says those who die in battle. How they felt about it, completely not even part of the equation. Their actions is what mattered. If they were brave and they had no fear, great, good for them. They go to Valhalla. They were literally pissing and shitting themselves on the front line and stayed in battle, they go to Valhalla. It's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. And coda, specifically, codependents, are absolutely ruled by their negative feelings. And it's no different from alcoholism or drug addiction. Alcoholics drink to get out of their feelings. Drug addicts drink to get out, use drugs to get out of their feelings. Sex addicts use sex to get out of their feelings. So the fact that you're having a feeling and the fact that you don't know how to act with an uncomfortable feeling, again, this is a regressed childhood issue. Bottom line is you didn't have a mom when you were angry and upset or scared who came and hugged you and said, it's okay to have a feeling. I still love you. If you had had that, what ends up happening is you go, oh, it's not about my feelings. I'm okay. I have power. I have validity. I'm worthy, even though I have this really uncomfortable feeling. Oh, I'm going to act. And everybody who's successful in the world, no matter who they are, if anybody is successful in the world, they will say that. Arnold Schwarzenegger, is a great example of that. People, when he, tries to, hype people up and give them confidence, he'll say, Well, what happens if I fail? And he'll say, you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot more than you're going to succeed, which means when you do fail, those feelings of failure don't stop you. You have the innate self-talk that says, you know what? I know I can do it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to keep doing it. If you're looking at Coda, you didn't get that. You weren't given that ability by your mother to say, you know what? I know who I am. Doesn't matter what those people think. Doesn't matter how I'm feeling about myself. Doesn't matter that I'm feeling insecure. I know that I have value and I'm going to go take this action anyway. So the answer to your question is, it's called taking contrary action. And it's the most valuable lesson I've ever learned in the 12 steps, which is you learn to take action that is completely contrary to your impulses. Because bear in mind, it's not just a feeling. There is a nervous system impulse within you that is telling you, do not ask that sponsor for help. Do not get that teacher to help you. Do not spend money on that course. It's your nervous system telling you to do that because you've been led to believe that if you put yourself out there, it's going to kill you. That's what it feels like. And Morag says, no, not just the money. I don't know what that means. Morag Greer, why are you telling yourself you can't do something? Let me explain to you how I do things. Whenever I want something, and so the assumption here, Morag, is you want me to co-sign you and say you're a good person because obviously you love interacting with people. So you're trying to tell me that you like the idea of having a teacher. So no, I'm not running away from teachers. I just don't want to pay for it. That's what you're saying. When there's something that I want and I don't have the money, I don't say to myself, I can't afford it. I say to myself, what am I going to do to get that? Do I have to put myself in debt? Do I have to take out a loan? Do I have to get another job? So what you're telling me is that you're not willing to do what's necessary to give yourself what you want. And I'm not going to co-sign that either because that's not how the universe works. The universe does not work when you have enough money, then you go do something. That has never worked for any successful person unless they were born rich. Every successful person never says, I can't do something I want because I can't afford it. What you've just told me is you are making an excuse for what I just talked about, which is I'm unwilling to take the risk and I have this perfect excuse. I don't have the extra $50. Because it's really, the truth is money is the easiest thing to get in this world. And when you make the decision, again, I know you haven't read my books. If you read my book, I'm going to write it down so you guys can go get it. It's very cheap. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Go get that book. It's cheap as hell. Read it. Memorize it. And if you live your life by that, you will never again say, I can't afford something I want. I want it, I can't afford it. You will never say that again, ever. Because that's not how the universe works. How the universe works is this. When you listen to your soul and your soul says, I want that, then you say to your soul, yes, sir, because your soul is God. And if you tell your soul, I can't afford it, it's like you flipped God off. What do you think is going to happen? When you say to the universe, I don't have the money for that, but I will die before I give up on getting that. I'm going to do that, whatever the hell it takes, I'm going to do it. The universe says, good, here's the money. The money shows up after you commit to something. I've done it so many times in my life, but I'll give you an example I've talked about numerous times. I probably even talked about it in my book. After I got divorced, I was married to a woman and she wanted me to live in her little box that she had built for me. She wanted me to be a house husband. She didn't want me to work. She literally wanted me to stay home and mow the lawn and clean the toilets. I kid you not. She used to text me, "Did you clean the toilets?" Shit like that. And she would get upset if I would go and create a business, or if I'd get students, she'd get uncomfortable. You can imagine that didn't work out, and we got divorced. When we got divorced, I had nothing. I had zero money. I was making like $300 a month off of some book sales, and that was it. And I had bounced around getting back to the West Coast because I wanted to start surfing again. And I was living in a little tiny shack in somebody's backyard in South Central LA. I kid you not, for something like, I don't know, $700 a month or something like that. And I was, in my 50s. And I was miserable. And I wanted to live on the beach. And I was surfing one day, and I came back, and I was walking along the beach, and I caught myself saying, "What can I afford that's near the beach?" And I stopped and I said, "I can't afford anything that's near the beach." So then I said, "I'm not going to think about money. I'm just going to think about the place that I want to live." And I looked around and I saw this house right there on the beach. Now, Manhattan Beach is not a cheap place to live. And I said, "I want to live in that house." I just said to myself, that's where I'm going to live. I don't know how, but that's where I'm going to live. And I think a month later, that house came up for rent. Now, I didn't have the money for it, but I called the number and I said, "I want to look at the house." And so the landlord was there. I showed up and I walked through there, and I filled out the application, and he says, "Your credit rating's not that great, but you know what? I'm just going to give it to you anyway." Now, I had signed a lease for a house that I could not even come close to affording. And I was now committed. And whatever I had in my savings, I used for the, the down payment or whatever, the deposit. And then I was screwed. And then I was broke. I had no idea when the money was going to come in. And out of nowhere, my channel took off, and my income quadrupled. And the reason that happened is because I didn't say to myself, "I can't afford it." I said, "I'm going to get it. I'm just going to get it. I don't care what happens." You say to the universe, "You have to support me. I'm going to follow my soul. You're telling me that my soul is God. I'm going to go live for my soul. And it's up to you, universe, to give me the resources." Because the other thing is, money doesn't exist. It's an idea. You are preventing yourself from having the thing you want, and you're bragging about it to the world. "I can't do it. I don't have the blah, blah, blah," because it's not real. You put whatever word you want. "I don't have the fatangle. I don't have the bingenbacht. I don't have the corporal spanked. I don't have the dirker dir. I don't have the money." It's a made-up word. It means nothing. Go find money. Oh, you've got paper. Well, paper is a symbol of something. Now it's all digital. So go find it. Go grab money, and then once you have that digital money, which isn't physical, now take it and make clothes out of it. Eat it. Stay warm. It's a non-existent thing. And if you are letting a non-existent thing that is just an idea prevent you from having something real that you want, you are living in nowhere. You are nothing. You are in a matrix of your own creation. It is a made-up world with made-up rules. Go to if where you can find tribes of people that haven't yet been discovered by people. Give them money. They will look at it and go, "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Oh, that's worth something." They're going to say, "Well, I can't eat it. I could maybe wipe my ass with it. I can use it maybe for fire starter, but I can't do anything with this. And you want me to what? Give you what? A horse and some blankets? And I mean, what? I'm not giving you that stuff. I can do stuff with that. I can't do anything with this." And you're spending your whole life avoiding what you want because of something that doesn't exist. Just want you to meditate on that. We're going to end up in a world where none of that exists. But what are you going to do if you're somebody who believes that money brings you happiness, that money gives you validation, that money gives you the power to get what you want? Because it doesn't. And that's the lie. That's the lie you've been told. But when you buy something you can't afford, you send a very clear message to the universe saying, I'm not going to let this symbol stop me from doing anything. Because when it comes to working with anybody, a teacher or anybody else, there has to be an exchange. You want to go and train with a traditional Native American wisdom keeper, you're going to have to show up with a blanket, you're going to have to show up with a bundle, you're going to have to show up with tobacco. And if you don't have that stuff, you're going to have to go buy it. There has to be an exchange. Otherwise, you can't grow. That's the whole point of a teacher. You want to know why you should have a teacher instead of just interact with an interdimensional being? The interdimensional being, what happens with them is you grow on a different level. There's an exchange on a different level. But when it costs you something for something that you want, you will master it. I know because I've taught people for free way back when, because I bought into that guilt trip of, a wisdom shouldn't cost anything. And so I taught people for free, and guess what? They didn't learn anything. But if I charge people money and they have to use their credit card or they have to borrow money to get it, you better believe they're going to learn it because it cost them something. So forgive me for saying so, but it's time to grow up a little bit. And the fact that you would use that as an excuse in front of the whole world as though we're all going to go, oh, and we're going to co-sign that, shows how much work yet needs to be done. So value yourself and love yourself enough to say when you want something, I'm going to get that. I don't know how, but I'm going to get it. And I'm not going to let anything stop me. I'm going to die. And I have been willing numerous times to live on the street before, throwing my soul away. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to die for what you want, there's a good chance you'll never get it. But once you get into that state of being willing to die on the battlefield, then this great thing happens. The universe always makes sure you have everything you need. Always. Always. Because, when I was getting that house that was quadruple what I was, able to afford, the universe doesn't know from money. $1,000 and $1 to the universe is the same because money is an idea. So the universe, the only thing that prevents you from having $10,000 as opposed to $1 is that you believe that idea means something and it stops you. But when you're completely committed, the universe knows that doesn't mean anything, knows that money is nonsense. And so the universe will make sure that you have it. All right, I think I beat that horse to death. What else? Nothing else? Okay, that's it. All right, guys, thanks for showing up. You know the deal. Again, as always, if I've done or said anything that you find hurtful or offensive, my job is to tell you the truth. Listen, we don't have time to screw around. We've got a short window. I don't know when this is happening. It could happen tomorrow. And there's going to be an energetic shift, hundreds of thousands of years of energy shift, and we don't have time to wallow in our self-pity and our narcissism and our fear. We just don't have time. We don't have time to be frightened little children anymore. We don't have time. So I'm here to give you the truth as best I know it. And I'm giving it to you in the hopes that it will hit and you will shift and you will change. I'm not here to get you to like me. I want you to like me. I'm just like everybody else, but that's not what I'm here for. That's why I don't have 10 billion subscribers, because I tell you the truth. And when it comes to spiritual empowerment, the truth is always a bitter pill, because it means you're going to have to do things you're not comfortable with. So please don't take anything I say personally. Don't let it hurt your feelings. If you are angry with me, take that anger and put it into doing what I said. Like, you're going to prove to me that you're not as wimpy as I just made you sound. You know what? I'm going to go prove to him I can go do that. Take that anger and prove me wrong. All right, that's it. I wish you guys all the best, and I will see you all next time. Take care.